Hey, Erin, we're on air.
Hey,
How are you? Good to see you.
good to see you too.
Likewise, it has been ages, and you know, we you know, we go back sometime.
I know I'm heading towards 40 quickly, and I was just doing the math because you're
Oh, but
talking earlier and you said we've known each other almost 10 years. And I went, oh crap, we have. That's a really long
almost
time.
exactly, indeed. And for the record, since we are going to be sharing this with our respective communities, which we actually have a lot of overlapping, right?
Yeah.
Um, we know each other through work uh, elsewhere, and we have a lot to share and a lot in common. And this conversation is going to be very candid, very open-minded and transparent. And whoever is going to listen to this, it's almost like they listened
You're
into
sitting next to us at the coffee shop while we
exactly,
reminisce. Yeah.
almost like they spied on us. So I know you as a very smart, very outgoing, and very evangelizing coach, trainer, and an agile coach and technical coach, and someone who really move things along. So that's how I'm going to present you to those
Okay.
that listen to me, and you can give me,
I'm putting that on my business card now
yeah, put you on
with your byline on it.
yeah. It's an honor to know you.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So anyway, so I have some questions for you, right? So I would like to catch up with you in a way that you know I would like to internalize some of your past experiences, most recent experiences and past experiences, so that I can maybe leverage it for my own self, as well as when I share it with my colleagues, clients, and network. Okay.
Yeah, likewise. So like I've done most of I've only worked in one place. So all of my experiences are from that one place, and it's very big, so it's a lot of experience.
Right.
But I'm eager, so you've gotten a better kind of well-rounded perspective of what's out there besides just the four walls I live in. So I'm eager to see what you're learning out in the field that I can take back home.
Sure, but I think even within your confinement, you've been pretty versatile and pretty, you have been around. So
That's the joy of a
your,
big place. Yeah.
yeah, your experience is valuable, and I know a little something about your place. We agreed not to mention names on the call, and but I'm definitely interested in your experiences, recent ones as well as past ones. So I got a few questions for you. You probably have some for me, right? So to be fair, we're gonna go tic tac, right? So. I got one for you, and tell me if you can associate with it and give me your insight. Like in your case, if you run into the situation where you up against the wall, you see there is a downfall or a degradation of agile improvement efforts at the organization you're in. When you see that there is a rollback, and like almost like a rollback transaction and so many forward transactions, what do you do? How do you keep your head up against the water? How do you keep yourself sane without like losing patience and coolness? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said water because I think water is like the correct analogy here.
Yeah.
So it's like because I've been with the same place now for 17 years, so you get to see a lot of cycles, and a lot of this stuff has come in waves where you'll have like this wave and you get to ride it in, and all of a sudden you've got leadership support and people are eager on the ground and great stuff is happening, and then something happens, normally leadership change, and then everything pulls back, and when it pulls back, it's super painful. So the first time it happened, I quite nearly gave up. Like I was kind of done. Part of the problem, like fellow employees and I got together, and we agreed that we actually left the place worse than we found it because we like shown so many people a different way of working, and we'd educated so many people and given them kind of a taste of freedom and a taste of what it's like to deliver in a team that's autonomous and self-directed, and then it got all taken away and they were more unhappy than before. So
But
for people that like our job is to improve things, we felt super guilty about leaving them that way and very nearly let that take us down the
see,
first time that happened.
sounds like almost you gave them hopes and you set their expectations at certain level, and what, like senior management came and changed, and prerogatives change, and so isn't this
We made a bunch of promises to people that we believed when we said them. Like, this is where we're going. This is the new way. This is great. Laid it all out for people. And then those like promises got taken away. and we felt a strong sense of responsibility, and we kind of had our hearts broken about it. Because, you know, like new Agilists, it's kind of religious a little bit. Like, it's like you get saved and you want to tell everybody and you're super excited and you're on fire for it and it's fantastic. And that was us. And then to have that dashed and to see that not just go back to zero, but like full, like, and how quickly it can be undone. So what took us 2 years to build up was undone in 2 weeks.
Really?
And how fast that stuff can happen.
Just out
Yeah.
of curiosity, those people that actually are, let's call them accountable for rolling back things that have been erected over years, do they take any responsibility? Do they feel accountable for what they have done? I mean, there's got to
No,
be.
they're so far removed from it. So that the part of the problem is in a large organization, the separation between the people making those decisions and the actual impact is so far that you can come away with a lot of cognitive biases that will make you feel like you made the right decision. And I have to account for my cognitive biases too, because like, who knows, maybe it was for the time and the place. Maybe that was the right decision. But it definitely was painful to people. And it nearly tanked a lot of people that had just spent a long time learning from people like Craig Lerman and building a lot of very deep skills. Well, and many of us gave up. There's only a few of us left that really have stuck it through. And the difference was kind of what so the position I'm in right now, I was describing to you earlier in another conversation, is kind of a lifeboat role. So it's one of the things I've learned is this is a long haul thing, and wave after wave will come. Each wave goes a little bit further onto the shore, but when the water goes out, you've got to stay above. So I will take a job that looks like fun for a bit. And it may not be hugely impactful, and it may not be an Agile coaching role, and I may not be like making a huge Agile difference for the firm, but I'm learning. So I spend that year learning as much as I can to come back.
You have reached a plateau. You got to stay cool for a little bit. You have to stay put, stay safe, wait for another wave. And as it comes, it's almost like I don't surf, but I know that's what people do, right? And as another wave comes in, you try to get up higher and further. Because if you keep fighting, right, you're going to probably stall at one point and, you know, go idle and collapse. It's like congestion collapse in manufacturing, you know, coming from a different. So I see what you're saying. Okay. So
yeah, and it's going to happen. So you can see the difference is in those of us that have held on is we've been able to learn and learn and learn. And each time we get better at it. If you give up, you're kind of done. So, but you've got to take care of yourself, because this stuff is we feel so passionately about it and so personally that you get really attached to it, and it can be heartbreaking.
You know, I'm almost like ready to, you know, to take this conversation to a completely different level. You and I agree that we can have this for hours and hours and days. We want to time box ourselves to 10 minutes, but just to not know what I'm going to say, I strongly associate with you. So first of all, I think on average every 7 years as senior management, not leadership, management, comes and goes. Prerogatives change, ambitions change, and things change, and you have to be prepared to roll back and stall.
Yeah. And it's normally about every 2.5 to 3 years, like clockwork.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe the cycle time has shortened by now. Yeah. It used to be like, you know, statistically it's like 6 to 7. Now probably
it's much faster now.
Because it's probably right because of high degree of churning of individuals, even at senior level, right? They come and go. Yep. There's just more around.
Even if they're not leaving a firm, they're often wanting them to rotate to get exposure to different parts of their role. So it's about every 2.5 to 3 years, you'll see a new person come in. And I love that you're calling them senior managers, not senior leaders.
Yeah, well, you know, if I want to follow someone out of the building, yeah, that would be a leader. I mean,
a leader cannot be assigned to you.
Exactly. A leader cannot be assigned to me. A manager can be. And I actually met some great people at the organization you're in, and people that were probably not so great, you know, and I think I understand what you're referring to. Right. Okay. So
I've got a question for you, if you don't mind.
Please. Yeah. Let's.
So like that's some of like what I was just talking about is very much the internal challenges of an organization. But sometimes to deal with those, they'll seek out external guidance, which I've seen quite a few times, especially if they don't feel like they have the expertise, which is good. Like they're admitting they don't know everything. But when they start to seek out that guidance, sometimes it can go wrong. So especially when they're working with like coaching and consultancy. So what have you seen along that? Like, what would you warn people of? as they're
So
engaging.
yeah, so first of all, it's great if someone is not in denial, then you'd help. So the first sign of alcoholism, if someone is in
You have a
denial,
problem.
they have a problem,
Yeah.
right? And maybe I'm not the best person to come up with an analogy, but this is it. I call things what they are. If someone is not in denial, they have a problem. At least we're getting somewhere. Now, I'm going to put myself into the shoes of a company, a client company that might be experiencing some challenges and they want to seek external help. And let alone they may have their internal people that are, some of them are more or less qualified to push things forward. But needless to say, there are people out there that have done this for years and as a full-time job, and that's their bread and butter. So it would be silly not to leverage external expertise. Now, I have boiled down a bunch of challenges that the company may face to the key two ones, the two major ones. Um, well, maybe it sounds like it's obvious, but I'm stating the obvious, but I'm going to restate it and make this very explicit. Now, because this industry is almost intoxicated with the word agile, and everyone, their mother, wants to be agile, and the word agile is almost slapped on every can of tuna and sardines. Um, Pretty much anyone who used to be XYZ role on Friday, if they feel they're being dismissed or misplaced, they're calling themselves an agile someone on Monday. Now, of course, these old roles relabeling into new roles doesn't change a thing. But what it does
It actually
change,
makes things worse because you're translating, which comes at a cost. You would be
exactly,
better off not doing it.
that's precisely right. So, and actually, the companies fuel this problem by creating demand for low quality people. Now, what you end up seeing is people that invest very little in their own career growth and education, people that barely read any books, people that just went out, got some, certification that was basically you sit in class as long as you stay
You stayed
alive by
away
the
for
end of
50 days.
class.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you put it on your resume and you have the whole, line of abbreviations. So these are the people that become the mainstream, and of course, the factor to this would be these staffing firms and consulting agencies, the subcontracting firms, second, third, fourth hand that pull people into companies. It almost reminds me of maybe you watched the movie The Boiler Room of the late 90s, right? That's what the business is like in this industry, and that's how low quality um, companies get. So
When they don't know
I,
the difference. So
I
the reason they're asking for help is because they don't know. And because they don't know the difference between someone who knows what they're talking about and someone who's very good at speaking confidently and they have no clue what they're talking about.
it's
So it's
precisely,
like,
yeah.
and they don't know the difference. And there's no, so like I just got my AWS certification for solutions architecture. I
Hmm.
studied my butt off for that. That was a difficult certification. Holy cow. It took me weeks of study and taking classes and practice. And I compare that to any of the certifications I'll see people come in with Agile certs. And while we're really doing ourselves a disservice.
It is. So it's a lot of the service. In fact, I had some publications on this a few years back, and it just strongly resonated in the in some more more reputable communities. This industry is grossly diluted, and the volume of so-called experts and evangelists and agile in name only dash used to be an old role is just the volume is humongous. So it's almost like a vicious cycle. So
Yeah.
that's problem number A. That's the free. I call it second market problem. There's another problem. There's another challenge also, and it's also external. So I'm being a company now that wants to seek help. Seeks help. So what problem am I facing? So I'm facing a problem of large consultancies. I'm going to leave all of the names out of this conversation. Rolling in, or perhaps they're already on the vendor list. They already has been in for years. They bring in, they're great, they're amazing salespeople that that are able to sell. They can pretty much sell you, a handful of sand in the desert. So they sell you these best solutions, these best practices, bodies of knowledge. I refer to them DDTs. You're very familiar, of course, and know better than me what TDD is, test-driven development. That's not it. They sell DDTs. That I refer to those as deck-driven transformations. So you buy in.
Oh, I know exactly what I've seen these decks, and they are beautiful. Like, oh my gosh.
You have to
Pitch Pro
parse it with a
templates
parser, right? A size 6 pixel font. You cannot read it without a magnifying glass. I usually say, why don't you just buy a book? You know, it's plagiarized anyway, so you might as well read a book. So, and of course, you know, they don't come cheap. Of course, you know, they could be, you know, almost $10,000 a day per consultant. You have no idea how much.
And they come in with an army of them normally.
And they come with armies of those young, energetic, well-spoken, top students from top-notch schools. I don't think they're getting people that are not smart, but they're getting people that have almost none industry experience.
Yeah.
But these people are well presented.
And actually very little book knowledge about agility. They know exactly what was given to them in that deck and not much more.
Precisely. But quite frankly, I've met quite a few of those on site with companies of clients and clients. You take the deck away from them, you try to engage them in the conversation, and they're lost.
Yeah, and heartbreakingly, I found a couple people that you talk to them outside of the deck, and they're actually very highly skilled. But those are the ones that don't last long because they're because you mentioned best practices, because all of these consultancies come in with a cookie cutter, because it's how they scale, is they have a cookie cutter approach. And if you don't fit into that cookie cutter, they don't care. You're going to do the cookie cutter.
You know, it's funny. I know that there was a remedy. There was a reason why there was a cookie cutter. So first of all, they don't challenge. They like giving what a company wants to hear. So no one, you know, so they don't rock the boat too much. And usually they come with a heavy, commercially available, nice, you know, nicely packaged framework that it's very easy to unpack and install. It usually comes, oh, by the way, it works seamlessly with this Agile tool that is amazing for reporting. So now you got one hand washed to another, and you know, I'm still talking from a standpoint of a company. So I am buying a super expensive consultant or a few of those with thousands of licenses of some Agile in name only tool, and off I go. So now we talk about budgets, right? So, so this is really the challenge I'm seeing. And you know, of course, we could be politically correct and not talk about this, but in reality, this is a problem. So if we don't speak about this and no one else does, then it would be considered as almost a norm. So, and by the way, those companies that preach agility and best practices and some of these unwrap and install frameworks in their own backyard, they're not practicing it. So
yeah, so I have a rule which says, so whenever I'm working with vendors, if they don't use their own tool, I will not work with them. And the same should be true of practices. If you find that they are not actually embodying the same practices that they're there to teach you, that means they don't believe it, and they don't understand it. If they can't make it work, so you've done the same thing. So we've used Scrum and Kanban and XP practices for everything. So like I've used it to run organizations that were not writing a lick of code. I've done continuous integration on training material. Like if you believe this stuff, you run your life that way. Like the number of Kanban boards that are in my house right now.
I believe it. I saw it when we were rolling your camera. So, you know, yeah, we can probably get very, you know, very verbose and emotional about this. Both of us feel the same pain.
Yeah. Agility is a lifestyle change, and people want the fast crash diet. So this is like, if you want to be agile and you believe in the manifesto, you are. That's the day one of your lifetime journey to becoming more agile. People don't like that. They want to know, what's the crash diet I can go on? What's the 3 exercises I can do every day that only involve moving one finger that will make me lose 40 pounds?
Exactly right.
That's not what this is.
I'm very much, you know, yeah, it's the borderline of being sentimental and being and remaining ironic as I try to be. So I try to
great sense of humor,
my sanity with irony, right? So yeah, so like you said, if you don't practice what you preach to others, or if you practice it doesn't work, don't preach it to others. So it's just that kind of problem that I'm seeing over and over again. And I talk to some of the clients and some of the potential clients, companies, and they tell me these stories about these amazing installations and amazing approaches that these large consultancies come in with, this
Yeah.
cookie cutting approach, as you said. And I constantly keep reminding to myself, well, you don't want to digress and bash everything they
They're
describe.
doing their best. Like
Huh?
they're not meaning to do harm. They're doing their best.
That's what, well,
Not skillful.
exactly. I would argue that, yes, I think genuinely those people that are being put on site, they don't mean any harm. I would probably peel back that onion and understand why is it they're coming with this oftentimes harmful solutions and proposals. And maybe
Well,
because
it's short term versus long term thinking. That's
that's
why I'm still at the same place I'm at and in a unique position, because I live in the place I'm at and I intend to keep living there. So if that's the case, then I can't just make decisions that make me money tomorrow. I got to be ready to do stuff that's good for me 10 years from now. It's a
I
very
see.
different mindset.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So we can digress, and I
Yeah.
know we're on Eastern Standard Time, and we will probably be here by midnight and after midnight. So let me switch gears and ask you another question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Can I? So you are still at the very large organization, right? In financial space, and of course, as much as I'm sure you have appreciation for basic Scrum, basic Kanban, basic XP practices that actually are that do work. They have decades of proven track record. You may be in a position where you have to scale up some of the efforts that happen at the rudimentary ground level. What some of the mistakes or challenges have you seen or have you experienced perhaps with scaling attempts? And we kind of mentioned about these large solutions that are also scaling, right? But what
Yeah.
have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's likely the same stuff everyone's seen. I've just seen it enough times now where I'm starting to get patterns in one organization, patterns over and over again. And it's the basic stuff around. A lot of it's the copy paste agile. So they assume what works with 5 people will work with 500 or 5,000, and we've got 50,000 people, and they assume that skill is going to work. But the big one that I'm seeing lately is finding roles for people rather than people for roles. So they will look at
Local optimization 101.
Yep. And so we'll look around, we've got 17 executive directors in the organization right now. Okay, well, clearly we need 17 products or 17 area products because that's how many leaders we've got. So
You have to justify their existence. Right?
Yes. And God forbid they be on a development team where they can go and actually like mentor people and really lead. They must have a named role. So
Right.
and it's one of the, like, it's a mistake I've been talking about recently. In some of our early implementations, we ended up with very junior product owners that were not empowered at all. They were kind of spare people that people were willing to give up. So we pushed really, really, really hard to empower product owners, and insisted it's a very senior role. It's prime time. It's a big deal. We pushed too hard, and the organization swung too far that way, and it became the be all end all. So we actually disrupted the balance of power that you have between the roles in Scrum, and made the product owner so much more senior and powerful than the other 2 roles that they became a new CTO. So we don't have now the balance, the checks and balances.
It's almost like a spaceship lost gravitational pull
And they just kind of start wobbling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So because of that, then everyone wanted that role and only that role. So people were chasing it like crazy. So we ended up with itsy bitsy tiny little products, or newly invented roles like a feature product owner that's below the area product owner. So people ended up with additional hierarchy.
Yeah.
One of the problems with frameworks, I love frameworks, but they're hard to apply on if you don't have skill. So as you look at a framework, you're supposed to implement it and grow it and make it work for you, which is fine if you have skillful coaching. If you don't, what people end up doing is relabeling, copy and pasting. Yeah, and it's more harmful than if you'd never changed.
You know, it's funny you mentioned this. Last week I had a guest speaker at a large scale Scrum meetup virtually. He was the United States Air Force Chief Software Officer.
Yeah, I saw your LinkedIn post about it. Yeah.
You saw that, right? So I'm not gonna. Well, he actually was very adamant and explicit about discouraging the military software development company, organization to use safe. And the reason, well, there was a bunch of reasons why he explained why so, but one thing he stated that kind of restated that obviously, unless you are able to implement something basic, right, like basic Scrum, don't try to scale.
Yeah.
But you're going to be scaling dysfunction, and this scale dysfunction will be to the factor of, second, third power. It's not going to be linear.
And people are obsessed with exemplars. So they want to copy and paste someone else's implementation, which means they're copying and pasting all of their mistakes and adding their own mistakes on top.
That's right. Yeah.
You're doomed. But yeah, the big thing that I'm on now, like we were talking about managers versus leaders earlier, is part of that weird thing that's happening where everybody wants that named role is happening because we don't know how to set up real leadership teams with actual leaders. So like every leadership team I've seen consists only of managers. And I am a career individual contributor, and I insist on staying that way. I'm not made for management, nor should I be forced into it. But as long as we're making those leadership teams only be managers, named product owners, etc., there's no way to have a seat at the table unless you get one of those roles. And we're very uncomfortable with setting up leaders that are on teams and still letting them lead from those positions.
Yeah, that could be.
So we end up with tech leads and so everybody wants that named role because there's no other way of getting additional say in your daily life.
Sounds like HR is not caught up to par. We had this.
It's not even just HR. Like it's so embedded in the culture. So like our team operates very flat and always has, but we do have a manager, and like all the emails will go to that manager.
Yeah. Even
though you could, like, people are more comfortable working with your kind of single point of contact manager role rather than recognizing collective ownership. Yeah. So there's something there. Like I've got to put together a talk on it, the leadership team thing, that so that people stop
let me know
creating.
how it goes. If you want my input, I'll be happy to
For
do
sure.
it as well. But so I'm looking at the clock. We have kind of 25 minutes in.
Yeah, and I've got another question for you. If you've got a little bit of time, or if you want to wrap, it's up to you.
Sure, I'll take one. Yeah, I'll take one. Sure.
Cool. So actually, when I started as a developer, my first application was a vendor app, and I worked for that for years. And that's like a super special case when you're reliant on another firm, whether it be a vendor that owns your app, or if you're working with consultancies or kind of those outsourcing shops, and you're trying to become more agile, but you're kind of married to these people and tightly coupled with them. So what have you seen with what are some of the ways to deal with that?
Yeah. Okay. So just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna put myself into the shoes of our company. Hey, I want to become more agile. I want to improve my operational agility, my business agility. I want to become more agile from soup to nuts, from concept to cash. And this involves, of course, product development. Now, I am dependent between X to 100% on external vendors and external, call them partners to make it soft, but they're just, external companies that do work for you. And needless to say, these companies are in the preferred vendor list. Of course, they have been engaged for years, sometimes decades. And of course, they offshored. They have presence everywhere, all over the globe, in places where labor is cheaper. In my personal experience, it has been extremely difficult to build out agile teams. Let's take Scrum teams or Kanban teams by leveraging external vendors that have dual citizenship, worse yet, true loyalty residing with their own vendors. And they will have that loyalty residing with their own vendors because those are the companies that pay them salaries, give them bonuses, give them promotions, and of course, they fully control their destiny. So trying to, I'm trying to demystify the problem, trying to create agility, trying to build agile teams made of these very orthodox, anti-agile by nature companies. It's almost like it's unrealistic.
Yeah, like as a development team member, a lot of my day is spent pushing back and saying no and standing up for things. And I'm in a position to do that. I can't imagine being in one of these firms. You're not in a position to say no. You're not in a position to push back.
You can't.
So you've disrupted the balance of power entirely. It's It's really unfair and unethical almost to put people in that position.
And I do observe this all the time. And this is why we end up having this. There's a desperate need for additional control and additional metrics and additional reporting and additional PMO and governance, which, comes along with local optimization for those specific roles. Because if you are in legal contracts with vendors and those contracts are written in a very orthodox, very conventional way, fix everything, yet you are trying to become more agile, more adaptive, more reactive to ongoing needs, then you're going to have almost like different gears in the same transmission spinning at different speed. You're going to have a lot of collision.
It creates a class system, which is very upsetting. So I've seen it where we had like a mixed organization and the employees were of a higher class than the consultants. The consultants couldn't come to training events or potlucks or be part of the visioning exercises. They were just handed work and expected to execute on it.
Second class citizens, right?
Which is horrible.
Second class citizenship. And, so that's the problem to me. And I've seen this, and everyone suffers. A client company suffers because they don't get quality. They don't get deliverables as per agreements, as per commitments. A vendor company gets the short end of the stick because their people get frustrated because they get pulled off all the time. So there's no really magic wand to handle this. I could even say
go slower, have fewer people, don't have a need to do this. Work within your means.
That's right. The way I've recommended this a few times to companies. And look, you either outsource 100%, have them full accountable.
They own the product basically. Like they're
make them own it 100% and come back to you with with something that's completely done, which is totally suboptimal. Yeah. Do not try to pretend you are embracing them and caressing them into becoming more agile. They will not.
It's like having a foster child, but they can't eat with the rest of the family, and they have to sleep in a tent in the backyard.
Yeah, you might as well send someone off to the foster home, right? Just send them off to the foster home.
Yeah.
Or a better way to do it is just do full staff augmentation. Remove completely or trivialize engagement leads and engagement managers and minimize impact that a vendor company itself has on their own people, so you can augment them, bring them in, make them a part of your own team, so they feel safe and feel like they're home. They don't feel like second-class citizens. And then maybe, and I actually have seen this work better than kind of building your internal so-called quasi-scrum team made of internal employees as well as external people, but those external people get constantly pulled off by their lead, engagement leads, and hush on the table get reassigned to other projects. Just the whole array of dysfunction. So go back to
I would always go back and question, why do you need staff aug like that? And unless it's for we're going to go out of business unless we make the state because a regulator is breathing down our throat, and we don't care. We're going to write terrible code. It doesn't matter if we don't make the state. We're all dead. Fine, staff aug. I get it. Whatever. But that's so rarely the case when people are doing this. Normally, it's impatience and the fact that no one's read Fred Brooks. So we just keep throwing people at the problem because that's what we've got. When this is, it's not a people problem.
Brooks Law, right? Throw more people at the project that's already late is going to come in later.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we deal with.
Yeah.
Hey, look. Honestly, I don't want to call it a night. I mean,
no, we can keep talking forever.
I would love to keep going, right? And maybe see how it resonates. If people like it, maybe we can have another session recorded.
Can we just say it's so nice to be able to talk to a like-minded person, because I spend so much of my day trying to convince people, and I have to watch my words and I have to be careful, and I don't want to be too pushy. And so it's just nice just to be able to kvetch and complain and know that it's a safe place. I think everyone needs something like this and someone like this in their life. So
I would agree. And I feel also, very relieved, and because, sometimes you just need to talk, right? Like you have to talk it out.
Yeah. And I don't want to have to convince anybody. I do that all day. Like just to be able to agree and discuss.
And hopefully by sharing this with others, we will, do a bit of goodness, right? Because hopefully we'll be an eye opener to others. Maybe, who knows who's going to listen to this? Maybe
like the people know there are other people like them, and there's a safe place.
Maybe so. And maybe some clever, clever person in a senior role will listen to us and say, aha, maybe he or she is going to have that aha moment. And maybe who knows? Let's hope for better, right?
Yeah. That's the only
Excellent.
thing
So
that keeps us going is hoping for better.
yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you for finding the time. I'm sure you had other things to do. And, it was my pleasure as well to give you some of my time. And I think it went out, it went really well. So I'm going to probably, stop recording and hopefully we'll go into the cloud and then we're going to share it with
What happens?
each other and we'll see what came out.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. It was great talking to you, Erin. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.